So I thought I would just add a layman's perspective, on financial independence and financial success. And it's basically this, right? Because as somebody that's, been in the professional world for over a decade now, and I've seen and I've been in different kinds of jobs, different kinds of industries, from like software development to marketing, digital marketing, copywriting, and sales. And I've kind of been able to see things from different perspectives. And kind of one interesting thing that I kind of see as a theme, based on my own experiences and what I've seen and what I've heard other people share, the lessons I've learned over the years, is that financial success is something that's gonna be a lot harder to do if you are just dependent on your job, right? Like, I've had the experiences myself personally of being fired so many times from various kinds of working jobs and things like that. And what I have realized, and I think I kind of just realized this fairly early on in my professional life, was that you weren't really gonna get rich off job job work, just because it's not really set up for that. But rather, the way that you would actually achieve financial independence is, if you look at, and this is one of the reasons why, in a lot of cases, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This is one of those things that can seem really hard, almost impossible to fix in the world. But if you really look at it, you see that rich people typically own assets, and in a lot of cases, those assets are cash flow producing assets, whereas poor people tend not to have any assets and not to own. And so what tends to happen is that over time, guess what happens with a cash flow producing asset that's already producing cash flow and is already valuable? It just becomes more valuable over time. You contrast that. For example, let me give an example of, like, if you happen to own a hotel in Hawaii on the beach, right? It might be worth 50 million today, but guess what's likely to have happened if you come back 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line? It might be worth maybe 60, $75 million. And so it gets to outpace inflation, and you can actually make an income of that asset, like every month, every year. Now, somebody that doesn't have that kind of asset, and maybe they are relying on their job income, they might be earning a certain wage today, let's call it 30K a year, or maybe even 100K a year. Like, maybe they're a six-figure earner, right? Like, they made it big, they're a six-figure earner. Now, 5 years down the line, they might still be earning that exact 100K or 30K or whatever it was, because in a lot of jobs, there isn't really a whole lot of wage growth. And in some jobs, in fact, wage growth doesn't keep pace with inflation. So this is just one of those things that happen. Whereas somebody that owned a cash flow producing asset actually got to benefit from cash flow all those years, but also the asset itself actually appreciates and outpaces inflation. And so this is one of the weird patterns of how the rich actually get richer and the poor get poorer, tend to get poorer over time. So if you're trying to fix this in your own life, right, you kind of need to do some things that are out of the ordinary, because the ordinary part really doesn't solve that for you. Like, no asset is just gonna fall out of the sky for you to own. So you kind of need to play your cards a little bit different. And so one of the things that you can actually do is look at, okay, how do I get into owning assets? And if you don't have a lot of money to invest in assets, like myself, the way I went about, going about getting into the asset ownership side of the equation was that after I got fired from, from my job way back in 2014, uh, I actually started my own first startup. That was the very first startup I ever launched. I said, okay, I'm gonna start my own company, my own business, and I can use my own skill set and actually build a product that can be my path to financial independence. Now, I didn't necessarily have that level of sophistication around it. I wasn't thinking in terms of like, oh, this is a cash flow producing asset, or this is necessarily my path to ownership and things. I just knew that it was kind of instinctual, like, if I'm not gonna be working in this job, why don't I try doing my own thing, building my own thing? Just let's see what I can actually build, and that set me off on the path. That set me off on the path. A very long, very painful, very hard path, but a very adventurous path with a lot of adventure and with a lot of learning, with a lot of growth, and with a lot of experiences, right? And so many years later, what I can see is that um, I think that a lot of us just need to commit to the entrepreneurial path a lot more. And like I talk about in some of my videos, there are ways to do this the easy way. Like if you build what I call a product-based side hustle, you can do this on the side so you actually keep your full-time job. And that's what I recommend most people do, because your job can actually be a very good vehicle to help you get to the place you're trying to get to financially. You just need to build a business on the side of that as well. And if you build a product based business, that's a business where you're actually selling a product, like whether it's a software, so like software as a service, or whether it's an e-commerce product. Like look at Amazon, they sell products via e-commerce. They sell books, shoes, clothes, all kinds of equipment, things like that. So you could be selling things like that as well. Or your products could be an information product. So this is like courses and programs and things like that. This is something like if you look at uh, companies like Duolingo, or you look at Rosetta Stone. So they got courses on learning language, right? So you could literally sell a course online, get 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people to pay you for your course, and you're making very good money. So those are three different kinds of products that you could be selling: software as a service, e-commerce, information products, and that's how you really start your path to financial independence. Because it's a good thing to have a boss and to be working, in a company. But when you really take a look at the situation long term, there's always gonna be some other upstart person with the exact same level of skill and expertise as you do, that's ready to do your job, and maybe they can even do it for less, right? If they are not right where you're sitting in your own country, they might be overseas somewhere, and companies are always gonna be looking to cut costs and cut jobs and cut uh, positions, right? And so if you don't ever actually own your own product-based business or your own cash flow producing business in one way or another, it will tend to make you long term a lot more vulnerable to those vicissitudes that just happen to happen in the workplace. And you don't want that to happen to you. Just kind of long term, you kind of want to really plan and really start thinking hard about can you actually build a business, and what kind of a business can you actually build for yourself. Now, if you need some resources to help you along that path, you can also check out my free resources. The links will be in the description.